All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're tackling homeopathy.
Oh, yeah. Always an interesting topic.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from The Science of Homeopathy, a book by George Vithoulkas. It was first published back in 1980, and then it was republished in India in 1997.
Ah, Vithoulkas.
It's one of those books that really gets you thinking about health in a different way.
Yeah, he's got a unique way of looking at things, that's for sure. Blends history and philosophy, even throws in some cutting-edge science.
Right, he paints a picture of what it means to be truly healthy, not just, not sick.
Exactly. It's about more than just the absence of disease.
One of the things that really jumped out at me was how he talks about the history of healing.
Mm.
He points out that some diseases, like allergies and autoimmune conditions, are actually more common now than they were years ago.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, like with all the medical advancements, shouldn't we be getting healthier as a society?
That's the big question Vithoulkas is getting at. He argues that maybe we've gotten a little too focused on fighting disease
Okay.
and not focused enough on understanding the human body and how it really works.
So it's not just about attacking the symptoms.
Right, exactly.
It's about understanding the why.
Yeah.
Why do we get sick in the first place?
Exactly. That's where his idea of the 3 levels of being comes in.
The 3 levels.
Yeah, he says we exist on a mental, emotional, and physical level.
Okay, lots of overlap.
All interconnected, yeah.
Yeah.
But he sees it more like a pyramid, actually,
Okay,
with the mental level at the top. But that's the foundation for true well-being.
interesting.
It makes sense. Like negative thoughts or limiting beliefs, those can really affect how we feel emotionally.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And then, of course, stress can manifest physically, too. Tension, headaches, upset stomach,
Yeah.
So he's saying that if there's an imbalance on any of these levels, it can kind of cascade
Mm-hmm.
and eventually show up as physical symptoms.
Like a domino effect, almost.
Yeah, and he even uses this analogy of a center of gravity shifting within a person.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, for example, if someone's constantly suppressing their emotions,
Mm-hmm.
that center of gravity might shift, and then that leads to physical problems down the road.
Makes sense. He gives that example in the book, right? The woman with hair loss and headaches.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. Turns out it all stemmed from emotional stress that she'd been holding on to for years.
Wow.
It's like her body was trying to tell her something was off, but she wasn't listening.
So those 3 levels are constantly interacting.
Always.
And if you ignore one, it can affect the others.
Exactly. And this idea of the center of gravity shifting,
Yeah.
is that how Vithoulkas explains how diseases develop, how they progress?
That's a key part of his theory, yeah. He believes that true healing is about bringing that center of gravity back into alignment.
Balance.
Yeah, restoring balance to all 3 levels.
And that's where he introduces a concept that might sound a little unconventional to some people.
Okay, what's that?
The vital force.
Ooh, okay, I've heard a bit about this. Tell me more.
He describes it as this intelligent energy that animates the human organism.
Kind of like the life force that flows through all living things.
Exactly.
But you can't really see it, right? Like under a microscope or something.
Not in the traditional sense, but he argues that we can see its effects.
How so?
Well, think about it. Have you ever noticed how your mood can affect your physical state?
Oh, all the time. Like when I'm feeling super excited, I have more energy. But when I'm stressed, I feel totally drained.
That's your vital force responding to your emotional state.
Really?
And there's actually some emerging research in fields like electromagnetism and quantum physics that supports this idea.
Wait, quantum physics. Hold on, that sounds a little intimidating.
It's pretty mind-blowing stuff. Scientists have discovered that the human body generates electromagnetic fields,
Okay.
and these fields seem to be influenced by our thoughts and emotions.
Wow. So there's like this whole other level of energy and information flowing within us.
That we're just beginning to understand, yeah.
So that's where the vital force operates.
That's what Vithoulkas suggests. It's influencing our health and well-being at a very fundamental level.
This is fascinating stuff. So where does homeopathy fit into all of this?
That's what we're going to explore next.
Okay.
Homeopathy, according to Vithoulkas, isn't about suppressing symptoms. It's about stimulating the body's own healing abilities.
By working with that vital force.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm ready to dive deeper into that.
Let's do it.
Let's unpack how it actually works in practice.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've got this vital force that's kind of like this hidden player in our health. How does homeopathy actually work with it to help people heal?
Well, homeopathy is based on what's called the law of similars.
Law of similars.
Yeah, it's the idea that a substance that can cause certain symptoms in a healthy person
Okay.
can actually be used to cure those same symptoms in someone who's sick.
So like fight fire, but with tiny fires.
Exactly. The classic example is using like a highly diluted preparation of onion. You know how onions make your eyes water?
Oh, yeah?
Well, they can use that to treat watery eyes from allergies.
I've heard about that. But how can something so diluted actually work?
Right, it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It does.
Vithoulkas explains that homeopathic remedies go through this process of dilution and succussion,
Succussion.
which is basically vigorous shaking.
So like shaking it up really well.
Yeah, and he believes that this process imprints the energetic signature of the original substance onto the water.
Even if there's barely any of the original substance left.
Yeah, he's saying it's not about the physical presence of the substance so much. It's more about the energetic information that it carries.
So what, like a memory of the substance?
Kind of like that. He uses this analogy. Imagine dissolving a teaspoon of salt in a lake.
Okay, a big lake.
Right. You wouldn't be able to taste the salt in any given drop of water.
No.
But it's still there, influencing the lake as a whole.
That's a good way to think about it. But I bet that's where a lot of people get skeptical about homeopathy.
Yeah, I can see that. It requires a different way of thinking about how substances can affect the body.
It does. So according to the Vithoulkas, this energetic imprint, it interacts with the vital force.
Exactly. It nudges it back into balance.
It's almost like giving information to the vital force.
Yeah, guiding it towards healing.
And since everyone's vital force is unique,
Right.
it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all. Finding the right remedy is crucial.
Okay, so this brings us to something else. Vithoulkas talks about miasms.
Ah, yes. Miasms.
Can you explain what those are?
He describes them as inherited predispositions to certain patterns of disease
Like inherited weaknesses in the vital force.
that can be passed down through generations, yeah.
So it's like a family history of certain conditions,
Mm-hmm.
but on an energetic level.
You got it. And Vithoulkas argues that miasms are a big factor in chronic diseases.
Really?
He identifies three main ones: psora, psychosis, and syphilis.
Syphilis. Like the STD.
Yeah, but he's not talking about the actual disease in this context. He's using the term syphilis to represent a specific miasm, a pattern of disharmony that can show up in different ways.
Got it. So these miasms, they're like these energetic patterns.
Yeah.
They can influence our susceptibility to certain health challenges.
Exactly. And a good homeopath, they take these miasms into account when choosing a remedy.
So it's not just about treating the current symptoms, but also helping the person overcome these deeper inherited weaknesses.
That's the goal, yeah.
Like peeling back the layers of an onion. You get the symptoms on the surface, but then there might be these deeper miasmatic influences going on underneath.
Great analogy. Homeopathy aims to address all those layers.
Wow. So he also talks about this process called provings, right?
Yeah, provings.
What's those exactly?
Basically, healthy volunteers take doses of a substance,
Okay.
repeated doses, and they record any changes they experience.
Any changes at all.
Physical, emotional, mental, everything.
So they're like testing out the substances to see what kind of symptoms they produce.
Exactly, in healthy people.
Mm.
And all those symptoms are compiled into a detailed profile of the remedy, which is then used as a guide for prescribing it to others.
So the remedies we use today, they're based on all this information that's been gathered over time.
That's a big part of what makes homeopathy unique. It's based on this huge body of knowledge gathered through observation and experimentation. It's not about isolating a chemical pathway or targeting a symptom in a reductionist way.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how a substance affects the whole person.
Okay, so we've talked about the law of similars,
Mm.
the vital force, miasms, and provings.
Right.
What I'm still curious about is this dynamic plane.
Ah, yes. The dynamic plane.
What is that exactly, and how does it relate to all of this?
Vithoulkas defines it as the realm of the vital force.
Okay.
It's not a physical place, but an energetic level where energy and information flow between the mind and body.
So like this invisible network connecting our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations.
Exactly. And he believes that homeopathic remedies act on this dynamic plane.
They're not directly targeting a physical process.
Not in the conventional sense. They're stimulating the vital force to restore balance.
It's like the remedy is providing a little energetic nudge.
Yeah, helping the body realign itself.
I like that.
Yeah.
So going back to the remedies themselves.
Sure.
We talked about how they're made through this dilution and succussion process, right?
Yes.
Sometimes to the point where there might not even be a single molecule of the original substance left. How do people wrap their heads around that?
It can be a tough concept to grasp, especially from a conventional scientific viewpoint.
For sure.
But Vithoulkas argues that the dilution and succussion, it doesn't eliminate the substance's effect.
Okay.
It actually enhances it.
But how? If there's nothing physically there, how can it have an impact?
He suggests that the energetic imprint of the substance gets transferred to the water during that process. Imagine, like, shaking a bottle of perfume. Even after the scent has gone into the air,
Yeah.
there's still a subtle fragrance that lingers in the bottle.
Oh, I see. So it's like the water holds a memory of the original substance.
That's one way to think about it.
But, I mean, that challenges how we currently understand how substance works.
It does. It requires a shift in thinking. But if we can accept the idea that energy and information can be imprinted onto water, it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities.
For healing.
For healing, yeah. And that's what makes homeopathy so exciting. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
It challenges us to expand our understanding of what healing can be.
And Vithoulkas, he's very specific about how these remedies are prepared, right?
Absolutely. Everything matters. The quality of the starting materials, the ratios of dilution, the number of succussions.
Wow, it's very precise.
Very precise. It's this meticulous attention to detail that ensures the potency of the remedies. It's not just random. There's an art and a science to it.
And are there, like, different schools of thought within homeopathy about how to choose the right potency, the right dilution?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's kind of a historical divide between what you might call the low-potency prescribers and the high-potency prescribers.
Okay.
The low-potency folks, they tend to view the remedies as working more directly on the physical level, whereas the high-potency folks, they see them as acting more on the vital force.
So it's not just about the substance, but also how it's prepared and how diluted it is?
It's a really nuanced system. There's a lot of depth to it. A skilled homeopath takes all of these factors into account when choosing a remedy.
So Vithoulkas, he shares some case studies in his book. Are there any that really illustrate how these concepts work in the real world?
There are, yeah. One that stands out is about a man who came to him with severe eczema.
Eczema, ouch.
This guy had been using cortisone cream for years. It gave him temporary relief, but the eczema kept coming back, and it was spreading.
Well, that's frustrating. Cortisone creams can be kind of a double-edged sword, right?
That's exactly what Vithoulkas observed. He saw the suppression of the eczema as actually pushing the imbalance deeper.
Shifting the center of gravity.
Exactly. So the problem wasn't just on the skin. It was deeper, on that dynamic plane.
And as the eczema was suppressed, did it manifest in other ways?
It did. The man started developing asthma.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually he even developed rheumatoid arthritis.
It's like the problem was just being pushed around his body.
That's a good way to put it. And this is what Vithoulkas was trying to highlight, the importance of addressing the root cause.
Not just covering it up. So how did homeopathy help this man?
Well, Vithoulkas took a detailed history, considered his physical symptoms, mental and emotional state, even his family history.
Very thorough.
And based on all of that, he chose a homeopathic remedy.
And what happened?
At first, the eczema actually got a little worse.
Oh, no.
Vithoulkas calls this an aggravation. He says it's often a sign that the remedy is working, stirring things up on a deeper level to bring about a true healing.
So like shaking up a snow globe, things get messy for a bit.
Exactly. And then they settle into a new pattern.
A better pattern.
Yeah.
So what happened with the man's eczema?
After that initial aggravation, it started to get much better. But here's the really amazing part.
Yeah.
His asthma and his rheumatoid arthritis also started to clear up.
Wow. So treating the root cause, it had a ripple effect.
Exactly. It adjusts the interconnectedness of everything.
It's amazing how everything is connected, isn't it? It really highlights the need to think about health holistically.
It does. And that healing isn't always a straight line.
So Vithoulkas, he doesn't just talk about homeopathy, right? He mentions other things that could influence the dynamic plane.
He does. He briefly touches on acupuncture and healing techniques like laying on of hands.
So he's not saying homeopathy is the only way.
Right. He sees those therapies as also working with the vital force.
Interesting. He seems to be pretty critical of conventional medicine, though.
He is. He argues that relying on suppressive therapies often weakens the vital force.
And that leads to chronic disease.
That's his argument.
He even says that overusing antibiotics has made bacteria more virulent.
Yeah, he has some concerns about the unintended consequences of some medical interventions.
It makes you think. But it seems like a lot of people are looking for a more holistic and individualized approach to healthcare.
They are. People are tired of feeling like just a number,
Right, not just a cog in the machine.
Exactly. They want Healthcare that recognizes their individuality and empowers them.
And it sounds like homeopathy fits that bill. It's about understanding the individual and stimulating their own healing capacity.
That's the idea. It's a really empowering approach. It acknowledges the connection between mind, body, and spirit.
So let's say someone's listening to this and they're intrigued by homeopathy. Where would you suggest they start?
I'd say do some research, read more about it, maybe even consult with a qualified homeopath.
That's great advice. This has been a fascinating look into Vithoulkas and his ideas.
It has.
It's given me a whole new way to think about health and healing.
It's a journey, for sure. Vithoulkas' work offers a lot to consider for anyone who wants a more holistic approach to well-being.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. There's so much to unpack in his book.
Any final thoughts for our listeners as we wrap up this part of our deep dive?
I think the key takeaway here is that true health is so much more than just the absence of disease.
Okay.
It's about balance and harmony on all levels. Physically, emotionally, mentally, even energetically.
And recognizing the healing power within each of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Vithoulkas reminds us that we're not just passive recipients of health or illness. We can take an active role in shaping our own well-being.
You know, as we've been talking about Vithoulkas' ideas, one thing that keeps coming up is observation.
Oh, absolutely.
Like really paying attention.
It's crucial. Vithoulkas, he really emphasizes that keen observation, you know, really paying attention to the details. That's key for understanding those subtle nuances of a person's health.
Like noticing the little things that others might miss.
Exactly, yeah. Whether it's a particular symptom pattern, you know, or those energetic shifts like what you can see with Kirlian photography.
Right.
Paying attention, that's at the heart of homeopathic practice.
Like being a health detective.
Yeah.
Piecing together all the clues.
That's a great way to put it. It's about seeing the whole person, not just their physical symptoms, but their mental and emotional state, their lifestyle, their history.
Right.
Understanding how all of those factors come together to create their well-being.
And that's where Vithoulkas talks about the patient's constitution, right?
Yes, the constitution.
What exactly does he mean by that?
He describes it as the foundation of a person's health. It includes their physical and mental makeup, their tendencies, their predispositions, and how they interact with the world around them.
So it's kind of like their health blueprint.
Exactly. And understanding that blueprint, that constitution, it's essential for choosing the right homeopathic remedy.
It's not just about matching the remedy to the symptoms they're having right now.
Right. You have to find one that really resonates with their deeper energetic pattern. It's about finding a remedy that aligns with their unique constitution.
Not just a quick fix.
Exactly. It's about getting to the root cause.
And it seems like a lot of people are looking for that kind of personalized approach these days.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. People are tired of feeling like a number, you know? Tired of being treated with a one-size-fits-all approach. They want something that acknowledges their individuality.
That empowers them.
Yeah.
And it sounds like homeopathy can offer that.
Vithoulkas definitely believed that. He saw it as a system that respects the body's own wisdom and helps people tap into their own healing potential.
So it's not about the practitioner having all the answers. It's more about guiding the patient to find their own inner healer.
Beautifully put. It's about empowering people to take charge of their own health.
Well, this has been a really thought-provoking look at Vithoulkas' work. His whole perspective on health and healing is so different from what we usually hear.
It's definitely a shift in perspective, yeah. But it challenges us to expand our understanding of what's possible.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe this has sparked some curiosity in our listeners. Maybe they'll want to explore homeopathy a little further, see what it's all about.
I hope so, because the most valuable knowledge is the knowledge we can use in our own lives, right?
Absolutely. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for walking us through Vithoulkas' ideas.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk about this stuff.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even inspiring. Remember, true healing is a journey, not a destination. So be curious, be open, and most importantly, trust in your body's incredible ability to heal itself.